on show notes. Yep. And we start. So 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic This Week in WordPress and SaaS. We have a discussion about WordPress and SaaS with business leaders, experts in particular areas. We've got a returning friend of the show, a personal friend as well, somebody that's built a great business in the WordPress space. Should be a great discussion. We've got Chris Badgett back with us. So, Chris, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the tribe?
Sure. I'm Chris from LifterLMS, which is a leading learning management system for WordPress. It's been around since 2014. I've been in the WordPress ecosystem myself, building websites and learning how to use WordPress since 2008. I also have a podcast for WordPress professionals and course creators called LMS Cast.
That's great. And before we go into the main things that we're going to be discussing during the podcast, during the interview, I'm going to be asking how Chris has utilized the WordPress community to help him build his business. It's basically how he's utilized community to help grow his business and offer value to his audience. Like I say, before we go into the main part of this great interview, I've got a couple of messages from our major sponsors. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. I've got Chris. Should be a great discussion. Before we go into it, I just want to point out, Tribe, that we've got some great offers from the sponsors, plus great recommendations of plugins, services for WordPress. You can get all these goodies by going to WP-Tonic/recommendations, and you find all that free stuff on there. It's a great resource. So, Chris, obviously we've known one another, I think, now for about maybe 4 or 5 years now. Time flies, doesn't it, when you're enjoying yourself? But for the new people that maybe don't know about your background and that, how did you first of all, get into the world of WordPress, and what led to you and your partner to decide that you were going to build a learning management plugin? Can you give us an idea what led to those dramatic decisions, Chris?
Yeah, I'll give you the quick backstory, and then I'm happy to go deep anywhere you want. So I was a non-technical, non-business person. I used to live in Alaska. I ran sled dogs up there and operated a tour company up there around that on a glacier that you could only get to by helicopter. But after the birth of my first daughter, I decided it was time for a change. It'd been a great decade, but I really fell in love with this idea of building an online business, being location independent, and essentially making money online. And I started studying marketing. I learned how to build WordPress sites by watching YouTube videos, and eventually I started getting hired to build websites for businesses. I didn't charge much. Over several years, I built a big agency. We specialized in the course and the membership site niche, particularly around the Infusionsoft community at that time. Through all that, I was also launching my own courses as a way to try and build an online business and make money online. I started blogging about how I did that with WordPress. Those sites those blog articles started going way more viral than my other content. And, in our agency, there was no good off-the-shelf tool that combined membership, all the LMS stuff, the courses, the reporting, the analytics, and then gamification, things like achievement badges, certification, behavior-based text messaging, things like that. And then all the membership stuff. So Lifter just came into being to literally provide the tool that our clients desperately needed and wasn't available in the WordPress ecosystem. So that's how we built LifterLMS. And that was The story I just told you was really the story of 2009 to 2014.
Right. So for a while, you built out this plugin plus you were an active agency, and that was financing the build out of the plugin. Would that be correct to some extent?
That is, and I didn't realize how rare that was in the sense that, I couldn't have done that. I'm a bootstrapper. I had no outside money. I didn't have my own personal stockpile of cash I could bring to the table. So I ran an agency in parallel to starting the plugin business. They ran together for about 3 years. And when we first launched, we only had 42 customers on the opening week. So that's not enough money to build a sustainable plugin business. So it took quite some time to really get the momentum rolling. But I'm really glad I stuck with it and, have joined this amazing WordPress community.
One of the things that comes to mind with your responses, and it's quite tricky, there's so many tricky areas, like most things in business. That's probably what makes it interesting. One of the factors is you were saying that when you were helping clients build membership websites and courses, and that there wasn't anything that combined certain elements. But what struck me with you saying that is you get other plugins that try and do everything. Literally, they become what I call an enclosed garden in an open source larger community. So, and in some ways, I see those solutions as a worse solution than a SaaS, because you still have the overhead of having to find hosting and jump through more hurdles, jump over more hurdles, but you don't have the benefit of having access to other plugins because they're trying to provide everything. Has there been a continuous discussion in your own plugin where the barriers are, where you offer functionality, but you decide that there's some functionality that you won't provide, and it's better to utilize the third-party system of WordPress to provide those solutions?
Yeah, this is Chris, the product guy, talking. And, two of my favorite words are non-duality and integration. So, and which basically is having your cake and eating it too, or whatever. So how do you be an all-in-one solution while also being a strong WordPress community player? So there's like a non-dual thing there, and neither is the right answer. But we've found a way to really embody both. And the way I think about that is someone who designs a product roadmap and plans features and, how we launched into the space and what we're capable of, was that we wanted to be an all-in-one solution so that somebody could come and just buy LifterLMS, and they would need to get hosting. They would need to link in their Stripe and PayPal if they're selling. They need to buy a domain name, but that's it. They got a solution. But if you want to build a super complex, like Udemy clone, or that has all this like fancy landing pages and marketing automation that goes above and beyond the basics, WordPress is great for that. So that we intentionally designed a powerful API so that other developers could easily hook into Lifter to extend it and do things. So like, for example, WP Fusion, opens up LifterLMS to all the CRMs in a very elegant, marketing automation solution for hooking into the courses and memberships and things that happen inside the LMS. So that's the way I think about it. Is on one hand, we're an all-in-one platform solution. A platform business, I highly recommend, by the way. I see it being much harder in the WordPress ecosystem to develop like a point solution that does like one utility. you can do that, but it's harder for that business to survive, be profitable. There's going to be lots more competition. It's easier to get disrupted. But when you have a platform like LifterLMS or like WooCommerce, it has sticking power, and it also is a forcing function to help product creators focus and make sure they fulfill the need of their target market, and then also build out an ecosystem of relationships in the community where other people extend the product or build their agencies around the product or build their own offerings around the product. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, but it's tricky though, isn't it? Because, but like I say, if it was easy, everybody could do it. But I think what you're saying is that you have thought about it, you and your team, and it's ongoing discussion of how much functionality you provide and how much for your API and other factors do you leave to the WordPress platform and community, basically plugin community, third-party solutions, isn't it?
Yeah. And also leveraging WordPress native itself. That's one of the reasons why we were very early in our support and integration with Gutenberg and the WordPress block editor, because as WordPress evolves, if you stay with it, your solution remains current and relevant, because it's easy to get outdated in WordPress. From coding languages like what's been happening with JavaScript and React and everything, to just doing things the WordPress way is one of the ways we talk when we're doing the product roadmap. So if WordPress is going to go down the GDPR rabbit hole, we're going down the GDPR rabbit hole. If WordPress is going down this block editor vision, we're going to do it. It doesn't mean that we're not critical, or if we don't agree with something, or we'll speak up, but why fight the tide of the platform that we've built our platform business on top of?
Yeah, well, that would be not wise, would it?
Right.
So when it comes to community's really bandied around quite a lot, isn't it? It's a bit like everything. It's a bit viscous. What is community, especially on. I always felt that you've always tried, and your team have always tried to build community around your plugin and your business in general. Has that been something that just happened kind of naturally, or was it always been one of the things that you thought that would really help your business, or was it come about because that's how you could market your plugin, by attempting to build community?
Part of it is just personality. Like, as a
Yeah.
leader, I'm a people person, and a lot of things are relationships. And I noticed very early on in my online entrepreneurship journey that a lot of people would disregard the human element of a relationship, let's say in social media, or the way they interact with their email list, or they wouldn't actually talk to customers. They would just build the product that they wanted to create, or build the solution that they think the market needs. So in our agency days, the things that our high paying agency clients were demanding is exactly what we put into LifterLMS. So I optimize for conversations over conversions. So I listen to people, I listen to the market, and I also try to be as generous as I can and add as much value as I can, and not just be a taker. There's a lot of takers out there as well. So to have a reciprocal relationship with, users, prospects, industry partners, just other entrepreneurs, where just kind of mixing it all together and really just valuing community and relationships. It is part of our strategy, but it's also just part of our DNA, and community just has a lot of layers. And the way I like to describe it is, a lot of people think they're doing social media marketing, but they're not.
No.
And the reason is, if you just look at the words social and media, people create a lot of media and post it to social media accounts like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and whatnot. But the social part, in my opinion, is even more important, which is the conversations around that, or the conversation that happened before the content was created to really fulfill a need. So building community is not just posting content. It's a lot of conversations. It's connecting people to each other. So creating groups, places to hang out, like Facebook groups or live Zoom calls or webinars, in-person events, getting out of the building as an entrepreneur and going and doing things, connecting with people in real life. And it's a give and take. So yeah, community is everything. And in the WordPress community particularly, it's very powerful because, when you look at a release of, let's say, the WordPress core, a major release, and you see all the names, like, it's so much bigger than what a typical software company has, a small team and all that. It's just, I think people don't really get how big the world is and how niche communities, whether it's around WordPress or creating online courses or subject matter experts that are teaching on a particular topic, when you can leverage the entire world, the internet, open source software like WordPress and LifterLMS, you can create these extremely powerful, focused communities.
Yeah, I think building a friendship with Andrew. I didn't mention Tribe. Andrew's not with us today because he's not well. He's not been well for the past month. He's got a back injury, and he's a bit rough. So wish him well. But with Andrew and Stephanie, my co-host for the Friday show, I just didn't realise how enormous the Divi community was. Really, I honestly didn't understand, and I've never really been a part of it. But it's just on mine, and I think it's a bit like when we were talking about the boundaries between how much you provide in your plugin and how it's all very tricky, but it's a two-edged sword. It's, the WordPress community, those that make their living or power users or making multiple websites, they are extremely passionate, which is great, isn't it? There's a great interest, but there's a consequence. You can easily upset this passionate audience, can't you? So you've got to have the skill to understand what you're dealing with, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is it's just emotional intelligence, I would say. Like, that's one thing, just being able to kind of read people or just understand the different ways of being in the world. And the other is diversity. So there's a lot of different types of people out there in the WordPress community. I know from my customers, my prospects, and people behave very differently. And some communities are a bunch of people that are all like really similar, and other communities have a lot of diversity in there. And especially with the international component of WordPress, there's so many different kind of, I have a background in anthropology, so we call them subcultures. There's all these like subcultures within, let's say, WordPress, or within the course creator entrepreneur community. You got, just to use an outside of WordPress example, in the course creator entrepreneur community, there's a subculture of people where it's all about the money and the Lamborghini and the status and all this stuff. There's other groups that are don't want anything to do with that, and it's all about the passion and the giving and the healing and the self-love and the self-care.
Yeah, I think you're the same. I mean, I like money, but the only reason I like it is I like the odd comfort, but it's mostly around freedom.
Yeah.
That's what really drives me. And I sense you're a bit like that. I don't know for sure, but I sense
I've done a lot of work with this and self-reflection, and I do put freedom at the center and of what I'm after, but also what I build my software to empower.
Yeah, but you've
But
got a family as well, and I haven't. So you've got those responsibilities as well, haven't you?
yeah, but there's actually three flavors of freedom that I wanted to share, which is there's the more obvious kind of like financial freedom that everybody would like, to not have to work for money or have enough money to be comfortable. There's all kinds of levels within that. But then there's also the impact freedom, like to make the dent in the universe that you want to make. I saw some study that something like 95% of people feel like they have a soul crushing job. It's the opposite of that freedom, where they're making true impact that they're passionate about. And the third least obvious type of freedom I actually call creative freedom, which is where you're able to be the person that you want to be, which could be a family person. You could be traveling the world. You could dress how you want, hang out with the type of people you want. Just go out into the world unjudged as 100% authentically you. That's the other kind of freedom. So yeah, there's those different flavors I wanted to highlight.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that, Chris. We're going to go for our break. When we come back, we can continue this. Really, there are always interesting discussions with Chris. We will be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. Got a friend of the show and a personal friend. Well, sometimes I upset everybody sometimes. Well, I suppose you got to, haven't you? I just wanted to say you've got a summit coming up. Chris is the sponsor. It's the Membership Success Summit. It's made me 10 years old in 6 months. I've lost more of my hair, which I didn't need to lose. What's it going to be about? It's about building an online business successfully with a focus around membership and community. We got Pat Flynn as the keynote speaker. We got Chris. We got Morton Henderson, Rob Rowling. We got an amazing speaker list, and they're just going to dump their knowledge in 2 days for free upon you. You need to sign up. So go over to the website. The link will be in the show notes, and join us. Like I say, 2 days are totally free, and you're going to learn a ton. And it's going to be a great event, basically. On to the interview. What do you think is the kind of unique differences in the WordPress business side, especially plugins, than building a business as a SaaS? What are 1 or 2 key differences people got to know about?
I love this question, and I've actually thought a lot about it. And I have a lot of friends in traditional SaaS, and I personally have gone way outside of the WordPress community to learn inside of some SaaS founder kind of online education and coaching programs myself, where I was I was either the only or one of very few WordPress people there at all. And there's a lot of differences. The first thing that surprised me is that in traditional SaaS, some companies have this thing about community, like, you know, YouTube has like a VidCon summit. There's all these SaaSes have community too, but it's not the same, especially around this idea of open source software, where both WordPress and the things built on top of WordPress can be extended by all these other people. You know, I forget, I don't know the exact number, but something like 100 or so developers have committed code to LifterLMS to make it better, and also build add-ons and integrations with it and stuff like that. It's amazing, and that doesn't happen in traditional SaaS. Traditional SaaS has APIs that, you know, are open so that, you know, developers or Zapier can connect things, but it kind of ends there. It's not as advanced as it is in WordPress. The other thing about WordPress is it's much harder to monetize than a traditional SaaS. And I'm not saying SaaS is easy, but I see a lot more pain in the WordPress market from a financial standpoint, particularly with people that are running actual profitable plugin and theme businesses. It's much harder, the unit economics and the market expectations and stuff, than what I see in SaaS communities. The cool thing is, though, that I see WordPress particularly having a much stronger international, global focus. So what you lose in monetization ability and just kind of the difficulties of WordPress, you gain by having this huge global audience where people are translating your plugin in different languages, and just people all over the world are using the tool. Now that may be true with like big SaaS things like Facebook or whatever, but a lot of software, traditional SaaS, is more niche and enterprise, or focused on a market, but only in this country or in the developed world only, and stuff like that. WordPress is absolutely massive, and I'm actually really optimistic about the future of WordPress and how many people are still just coming in line and joining the WordPress community, the people that are, the agency owners, the plugin creators, the website builders of the future. So for all the faults, that global reach is often saves the day.
Yeah, it's a great answer. This is all very tricky, isn't it? Like I say, everything in business is tricky, isn't it?
The other thing too, I just want to note on the trickiness is, I didn't even know about myself that I was an entrepreneur until my late 20s. Like, I had these like things about my personality, like the continuous desire to optimize things, to test things, to take risks, but while also trying to be, prudent and not take too big of a risk, and, seeing opportunity everywhere. I realized much later, for all the trickiness of it all, but I have to do it because I have that personality type or whatever.
Well, I didn't have the option. I started my first business when I was 20, and I ran it for almost over 20 years, and I sold it for $1 million. And I burnt through a divorce and other things. I managed to burn through most of that. But that was in retailing. And then I got into WordPress, and it's all been downhill ever since. That was a bit of English humour. Chris laughs at my dark English. A lot of people don't, Chris, because it is pretty dark, isn't it? So what do you, before going to, are you okay doing some bonus content after we wrap up the podcast?
Let's do it.
I know you're busy, but they're always interesting discussions. I always think you find them interesting. So what are some of the significant changes that you've seen in WordPress and the community in general over the past couple of years? Have you noticed any trends that you come up on your radar?
Yeah. Some trends that are interesting. One is that WordPress kind of has this thing where it kind of amplifies the first mover advantage a lot. So that's just something to be aware of if you're in the space. Like you mentioned earlier on this, that you're surprised at how big Divi is and continues to be. Like, once certain things get momentum, whether it's like a Gravity Forms or a WooCommerce, there's this kingmaker trend that seems to happen, and that's just an interesting thing. Those tools do get disrupted.
When it comes to Divi, I always feel sometimes I've got a memory like a sieve. Who's the founder of Divi?
Nick.
He really understands his audience.
He sure does. Yeah, and I don't say it to say that these people don't know what they're doing. They're also good entrepreneurs.
But he's always understood his audience like a laser focus, and he's always provided the right solution at the right time in the restraints of the technology available at that time that really zeroed in on that audience. I feel that. Would you agree with that, Chris?
I do agree with that. Another trend I see is there's a development trend I notice right now, that particularly over the past couple years, where as the coding standards of WordPress evolves with React and JavaScript, it's putting pressure on some of the older plugins or older, more PHP heavy ways of doing things, which is causing in the space some developers to lose focus on WordPress because they don't really want to evolve into this new thing. And I find that interesting. I definitely would encourage people to continue to evolve and update your plugins and things like that. But I see that causing some people to leave WordPress or some products to stagnate. So that's an interesting trend that's out there. Another one that I'm seeing is more competition from SaaS. So in the same way that WordPress kind of democratized the ability for anybody to create websites and stuff like that, the ability to create traditional SaaS has gotten, I'm going to say in quotes here, easier. There's tools and like the freelancer marketplace has evolved a lot, and the low code, no code create thing it's just gotten easier. And if you look at my niche as an example, course creator, membership site, live training, there's so many new like course platforms, membership site, hosted this, that. So that's another thing which I think is actually very healthy, because what it's doing is it causes the technology creators to innovate. So you have to keep innovating. You got to meet your market, maybe niche down or go broader, but the best tools are going to survive. And WordPress has never had so much pressure from SaaS, whether you're looking at e-commerce, blogging, LMS, any of the kind of platform categories. There's always there's a bigger and bigger line of SaaS competitors for every category.
Yeah, that's so true. But I think SaaS is a fantastic business model. The VC and the investor class love it. But as Netflix is finding out, there's only so much budget. There's only so many subscriptions people are prepared to sign up for.
Well, that's the total addressable market, or TAM. It's real. Yeah, you can saturate a market, and eventually
I call it sassamatitis. This only, and gets to a certain stage where they're starting to feed on one another. They're not, the market isn't growing. They're just taking chunks out of one another. But
another thing I just want to put on there is this is going to sound really weird. One of the things I do to relax is study macroeconomics. And when you look at big global trends like population changes and demographics, if you notice, you can use these things to your advantage, right? And I'll just give a couple quick examples. Like you mentioned, like with Netflix, the viewership of that kind of content combined with population growth changes, and also with what's happening with inflation and affordability for discretionary income and for spending on entertainment and things like that. If you look at this stuff with a macro view, you can see things coming a lot sooner, and also spot opportunities. One of the things that makes me laugh when I hang out with, not in a bad way, but when I hang out with some of my traditional SaaS friends, is or kind of SaaS business folks, is they're always often talking about moving up market, right? But you got to understand, here in WordPress, it's also one of our advantages that we're cheaper. We have a lot of free stuff. So, and like you said, there's only so much up market. There's only so many enterprise companies that could buy your tool or whatever. So I'm not saying it's not a good idea to diversify and have an enterprise offering or whatever, or increase your prices, but take care of the people that have limited financial resources. And if you can do that at scale around the world, there's, whether with software or courses or really any kind of business, there's a lot of opportunity there. The world's a big place.
It certainly is. I think WordPress has some fantastic, the glory days of WordPress that are not over. There's great opportunities, but it could also slowly die on the vine. But I think that will be decided in the next year to 18 months, really. I think we're in a very interesting and crucial time for WordPress, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't rejuvenate, and because I sincerely believe that. I think we're going to wrap up the podcast part of the show. Chris is going to stay on for some bonus content. You can watch the whole interview plus the extra content on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. And we got some fantastic guests coming up in the next few weeks, like Chris, people inside the WordPress community, business community, and in the SaaS community. We've got some great guests coming up. So, Chris, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and your great company?
Just head on over to LifterLMS.com. You'll find us.
That's great. And I'm going to plug my summit again. Please join us over at the Membership Success Summit. Just rolls over the tongue. The links will be in the show notes. They'll be all over social media. They'll be everywhere. And please join us for this fabulous event. Me and my team have spent a lot of time, and it's just going to be a fantastic resource if you're looking to build a membership or online business in general.
I just want to throw in there too, the Membership Success Summit is going to be awesome. And like we talked about in this conversation here, when you find the right niche, one of the things that keeps me going is seeing people build membership with, whether it's courses and community and a niche that they're passionate about, and they hit all those layers of freedom, whether it's the financial piece, the change the world piece, and then the creative freedom, be who they are piece. The membership site community, people that build these, online businesses, when it really works, and there's no better place to go learn than the Membership Success Summit.
Yeah, thanks for that, because what I believe, Chris, is that it's one of the few areas where you could build a business and still be employed full time, and test the concept and start getting traction without risking your home going bankrupt. You can afford to fail and then try again and try again until you get product fit for your membership, for your course. And you can do that at the same, and it's possible to do it at the same time as you've got your full-time job. And there's not many things that you can do at the present moment that allow you that, is there?
Yeah, it's a great point. It's the ultimate scalable online business that you can fall in love with, especially if you focus it around something you're passionate about.
Yeah, it's one of the few opportunities online that are legit, that's still open for almost anybody that's got commitment and a work ethic, and that's prepared to go to something like this summit and learn from experts and implement what they're being told. And it's all free, most of it. What more can you ask for, folks? Yeah. We'll see you next week with another great interview. Please watch the bonus content. It's always great to watch me and Chris have a great chat. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye. So bonus content. So if you had a time machine and you could go back to the beginnings of LifterLMS, and how long ago is that? 7, 8 years ago?
Yeah, it was 8 years ago. To October of 2014, we launched the first version of LifterLMS.
So if you could go back and be your own mentor, what one or two things would you have liked to have been able to tell yourself where you are now and when you were 8 years ago?
One of the things that I wish I would have done is started a more serious writing program or blog. You know, if you look at the success of something like WP Beginner as an example, I wish I had put more effort into writing. My particular skill set and style tends to gravitate towards video and audio. But I believe that the best companies are built around the customer, not your product. And when you think about your company as a media company, in addition to like the other thing you do, like in my case, it's software, to really do media well. And I did, you know, we've done a lot of investment into YouTube and podcast LMS cast, but I wish we had done more on the writing side. So when you're starting a company, think about it as also having a very important media company aspect to it.
Well, I've kind of, it's been difficult because I've been quite public about my dyslexia. So I naturally went into podcasting, and I've expanded my video and my videos quite to a large extent as well over the past 18 months. But that's why I got into podcasting, because of my dyslexia. I think it's all tricky, Chris, because Rob Rowling, in his great podcast, Startups for the Rest of Us, he's got out a couple of episodes where he discussed this, but he pointed out some of the risks. There are benefits, but there are also risks, because he talks about that you lose focus about building real things that really do get more customers and also improving the product.
Yeah.
You tend to drift off and become a media company. So it's tricky.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Everything is a double-edged sword. Another thing I would go back in time is I would invest more in design early on. So I heard this metaphor once. It might have even been on Rob Walling's podcast about the hipster, the hacker, and the hustler that started a company together. And I'm kind of a hustler, kind of business guy, marketing guy, selling. My co-founder Thomas is a hacker. He's a wonderful, very talented WordPress engineer. But we didn't have super strong design, especially early on, and I think that really could have helped us stand out more in the WordPress space and in the broader SaaS ecosystem, and also in our marketing and stuff like that. So in starting a business, you know, you're often shipping a lot of MVPs, not just the product itself. Like the first version of Lifter in October of 2014 was a minimum viable product, or MVP. But when you're a scrappy entrepreneur in the early days, everything's an MVP. Like maybe the website itself is an MVP, and your sales program strategy is an MVP. You're just constantly testing everything. Which I think one of the reasons we've done well and survived is that we have that mindset, and we constantly challenge assumptions and test new things and implement what we learn immediately, even if it's in a very small way.
Well, I think your strengths has been really providing, considering the core product is free. Obviously, you have add-ons and you have packages, but considering the core product is free, which you didn't, and I think with our other previous discussions, it was a key decision, and it must have been a difficult decision, but it helped really kick off the growth stage of your company. But it must have been a difficult discussion when you decided that the core product would be free and not
Yeah.
crippled.
Yeah.
Um, um,
And that's
but
also just to what we talked about earlier. I like in a complex world, I like to make decisions through what I call simple rules. So it's impossible sometimes to like document everything. Sometimes you just need to have like some principles to live by. So when I say the WordPress way, it's like it has to do with like coding languages and stuff, but it also has to do with like the freeness of a lot of WordPress. So it's very much the WordPress way to give away a lot of value for free. And just for the listener, if you didn't know, when we originally launched Lifter, it was paid only. A couple years later, after we validated everything, we changed our model and made it free and had more growth after that and got a lot of distribution through the WordPress plugin repository. So free also helped us, get that massive exposure and basically be inside everybody's WordPress website if they typed in LMS in the search box. But everything's not without risk. But what I find in business is there's very few unrecoverable risks that you can take. Most of the time, if it had been a bad call to like make LifterLMS free after a year, we probably could have even reversed that decision and
yeah, I
everything would
think
be okay.
long as it's you just put it straight. Look, we can't continue this.
Yeah.
Because we're going to go bust. So,
Yeah.
and these are the reasons why we can't. And if you can't follow logic, or you don't want to listen to logic, there's not much I can do about it.
Right. Yeah.
There's a problem with I'm not going to want to go off track, but there's a problem with me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was down. Because of my background, I can be extremely persuasive when I want to be.
Yeah.
And not in a bad way, because I'm just trying what I see as logic, as what I see as my vision.
Yeah.
Look, Chris, can't you see what I can see, Chris? It would benefit both me and you, Chris. And isn't it so clear, Chris? These are the facts. These are the opportunities. And I used to get a bit peeved off when people used to say no.
Yeah.
And I used to think, why can't they see what I can see? Why can't they see? And it's quite simple. They can't.
Right.
They're not being horrible. They're not being nasty to me, even though, I might think, oh, if only they honestly just can't see it.
Well, this goes back to my point about there's all different types of people out there, and if whether it's vision or some people don't have any vision. I have too much of it. Like it takes too long to like implement. I mean, not. I'm just saying like I have more vision than I know what to do with, but I'm sure I'm lacking in a lot of other areas that people have plenty of as well. So people are different. That's all.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure, but I think it comes from my dyslexia, though, because I've heard a lot of other successful people that have dyslexia. They said they had this feeling that they could see things that others couldn't see. And it used to get them a bit humpty, where other people just used to say, and then they realised they just don't see it. They're not being horrible to you. They just don't see it. They just don't see the opportunity. They just don't see the benefit. They don't see the return on investment. They just don't see it. It's not that they're just being difficult for the sake of being difficult. They just don't see it. You could put as many logical arguments about why they should see your vision, but they just don't see it.
Yeah. I mean, that's why a big part of the job of the entrepreneur founder is to cast the vision. Like you have to get it out there. You can't just it doesn't just pass through osmosis. So it's a challenge for sure. Both for your team and the public and your partners and everybody else.
Yeah, but don't get grumpy and don't get cynical. it's just that they just don't see it, folks. But obviously, you've got to have logic behind it. Otherwise, you're just trying to manipulate people and you're just trying to be forceful. That's the other side. You're just trying to dominate. Um, and so on to another, we've got another 5 minutes. So what are some of the people in WordPress, SaaS business, the online marketing? I know you're a bit like me. You're focused on WordPress in your business, but you also like to listen to other podcasts outside the WordPress bubble. You remarked about that during the podcast part of the interview, and that's similar to me. I've got a kind of quasi-diverse interest. So, what are some of the people that are on your radar that are influence you or have influenced you, or what's maybe some of the books, podcasts, just one of 2 or 3 podcast books that have really influenced your entrepreneur journey, Chris?
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a really hard question to answer because I'm a voracious learner and reader and listener of podcasts. I listen to podcasts every single day, every day. And I don't read as much as I used to because I find podcasts to be a more
Yeah,
condensed format often.
well, my
But
education, I was as a child, I was seen as below average intelligence. I was put in a special school for low intelligence individuals. But I educated myself by listening to the BBC Radio 4, which is a kind of quasi-intellectual radio station, a bit like public broadcasting in the US. And I kind of educated myself through listening. So I'm a bit like you. I interrupted there. I apologize. Sorry.
No, it's okay. There's just so many, and I also am very much an auditory learner. So there's just so many, and I also like to learn from areas outside of my I can take something I learned about investing or macroeconomics from Ray Dalio and then apply it inside my business in some way, So I have other areas of interest outside of specifically WordPress and online learning and entrepreneurship. But one of the biggest in the past recent history, I did do a bunch of work with someone named Dan Martell. He has a program called SaaS Academy, which is where I connected with a lot of other more traditional bootstrap software entrepreneurs, some of them venture backed. I learned a tremendous amount through that program recently. Most of what I learned, though, I learned through podcasts and things like that. And I basically listened to people in much bigger, much more successful, much more famous, though not always, like interviews with Reid Hoffman, or I know like the All In podcast I like just for some some well-rounded, just like, hey, what's going on in the world, what's happening in business, entrepreneurship, the market. I feel like I'm smarter because I listen to that show. A couple others I'll just throw out there. I've listened to James Schramko for a long time. I think he's great. It's been a long journey with him. He was one of the original podcasters. I don't listen to him as much as I used to, but I mean, really, lately I've been into Lex Friedman, depending upon what the topic is. I like long form. I like Joe Rogan when he interviews an entrepreneur. I'm not so much into the comedy and the other stuff he does, but when he interviews an entrepreneur, I listen. I don't know. I have like a voracious learning mind. I can't turn it off, and it would probably be a little bit alarming how much time is in my earbuds. If you look at my Instagram or my Twitter or whatever, and you see pictures, you'll often see my earbuds in when I'm out walking the dogs or doing whatever. I'm probably listening on average to probably 4 to 5 hours a day of just learning. And a lot of that is entrepreneurship, business related stuff. And do I retain all of it? No. but oftentimes I'll take notes while I'm out walking. And by taking notes, I mean I'll talk to my phone, then send an email to myself about something to implement based on what I learned. And learning is what makes us human. And I personally just can't turn it off. If I have free time, I'm going to want to be learning, and while I do the dishes or walking the dogs, or, not directly engaged in something else.
I think one of the podcasts, because I've cut back on my podcast, because the past 6 months I've been trying to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
So, hola, ¿cómo está?
Bien, usted?
Gracias. It's bad. It's not very good, but I just plod along. So I've been trying to, but Rob Rowling, startups for the rest of us. What I like about Rob, because
Yeah, he's got a great one. Yeah.
well, he's so down to earth, isn't he?
Yeah.
He ain't a bullshitter, is he? He's been there, he's done it. He's got the arrows in the back. He built up Drip. He sold it. Had a successful selling. He strikes me, with Tiny Seed. He's doing something interesting there. He's got a good crew. He's got an amazing wife, the Zen, the Zencast.
Sherry Walling, she's great. She has a great podcast as well.
She's a great woman. And to me, he's always been helpful. I wouldn't say he's a friend like you, but he take my call and he's agreed to come on this summit. And his knowledge about business but he's very down to earth, isn't he? And Moulton as well. I've always, Moulton's a great friend, and he puts me right and says I'm an idiot on a regular. We always have a good argument. See, I'm English. I like a good argument. A lot of people don't. Obviously, there's got to be parameters, haven't they? You don't want to blaze in horrible, but I like a good banter.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't, do they, Chris?
It varies. Yeah.
All right. Yes, diplomatic as always, Chris is. I've enjoyed our discussions. I always do, Chris. I think it's time to wrap it up. I've got to get back to this summit and other issues and other things. And Chris has to get back to building his great plugin, LifterLMS. We'll be back next week, folks, with another great interview. We'll see you soon. Bye.